Jewish boxing stars have ruled the game of boxing since the 18th century through the late 1930s. They were known as the boxing masters. I'm Scrapbook Boxing, and I would like to discuss the Jewish boxing stars with you. Their contribution to the game has been ignored, and I would like to relive those contributions with you right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. A lot of great fighters came from the Jewish community. Jewish dignitaries, such as iconic trainer Ray Arcel, was born August 30th, 1899. He died March 7th, 1994. I had the pleasure of meeting Ray Arcel on many occasions. He had taught me about boxing, explained to me about the old trainers and the old fighters, gymnasiums, things that are so precious that I can't even read in a book anywhere. I'll be forever grateful for learning about the boxing stories from Ray Arcel. R.I.P. to him. Arcel trained fighters. He had over 20 world champions, such as Kid Gavilan and Abe Goldstein. He trained Larry Holmes and Benny Leonard. Benny Leonard was making a comeback against Jimmy McLaurin, and he was in the corner of Benny Leonard. Roberto Duran, Nathan Mann, Charlie Massera on the opposite corner of the great Joe Louis. Lee Q. Murray and Bob Olin, who was a light heavyweight champion. Lou Nova, Jackie Fields, welterweight champion, took the title away from young Jack Thompson and lost it, unfortunately, to young Corbett III. James J. Braddock, Cinderella Man, who would take the title away from Max Baer and lose it to Joe Louis in 1937. Jackie Kid Berg, Jimmy Bivens, Ethel Charles, Henry Armstrong, George Compartier, Buddy Bear, Maxie Rosenblum and Paulino Escadon, Al McCoy, Lou Nova, Harold Green, Tony Marino, Max Baer, Cesar Bion, Lou Burrell, Maxie Berger, Tony Zale, Leo Lomsky, Bonnie Ross and Sonny Horn, Lee Omer, Al McCoy, Benny Volger, Tony Pallone, Charlie Phil Rosenberg, Freddie Steele and Billy Seuss, Johnny Paycheck, Cisco Escobar, Al Core, and Frankie Genedo, just to name a few. You had gyms, such as Stillman's Gym, was ran by Lou Stillman. It was located on 8th Avenue in New York. 326 57th Street would be the address. And what was amazing about Lou Stillman, that he had no knowledge of the game of boxing. He was a former beat cop. But he would house some of the greatest fighters in the entire history of the game. Some of the Jewish stars that trained at Stillman's Gym was Sid Terrace, Ruby Goldstein, King Levinsky and Mushy Callahan, Benny Leonard, Maxie Rosenblum. But you would have other Hall of Fame stars, such as Johnny Bratton out of Chicago, Bob Montgomery out of Philadelphia, who was known as the Bobcat, Tony Gennaro, Joe Louis, Gil Turner, Jersey Joe Walcott, Harold Green and Rocky Graziano, Jimmy Carter, Ike Williams, Archie Moore, Kid Gavilan, Lloyd Marshall, Holman Williams, Willie Pep, Sandy Sadler, Jackie Kid Berg, and the legendary Jack Dempsey. Now in that gym you had Ray Robinson and Kid Gavilan, Willie Pep, Carl Bobo Olsen, Ike Williams, Bob Montgomery. They would be in ring number 1. The way that gym was set up, you had 2 rings right next to each other when you walked in. Now right off of 8th Avenue, we would walk up a long flight of steps. And you would walk to your right, and you would have a table sitting right outside the window. And you would enter the gym. And right next to the door, against the wall, you would have a man on a high stool. He would have a cigar. And he would have a microphone, very loud and distinguishing voice. His name was Lou Stillman. And he would humiliate and always crack jokes to all of the fighters. If he didn't see the jab right, he would tell you, get out of the ring, bum. Go get a real job. But he always respected ring number one because they had the champions and Hall of Famers. But you had many, many, many other great fighters in that gym. You see, when fighters came into town to fight at Madison Square Garden, they would pass through Stillman's gym. So you always had new fighters coming in. And the press row would be right in the front next to the ring. In my understanding from my dad, it was a fun time in Stillman's gym. You had other fighters such as Daniel Mendoza, born in London, January 21st, 1764. He died September 3rd, 1836. 72 years of age at the time of his death, and he had total bouts of 37 fights, 34 wins, and he knocked out 30 of his opponents. He would carry the Star of Israel on his trunks. From 1780 to 1790, he was a middleweight, stood 5'7". Now his father, Aaron Mendoza, and mom, Esther Lopez, had raised him up to be a no-nonsense young man. Daniel Mendoza would find himself in the ring with fighters such as John Williams, George Cannon, John Hall, George Smith, George Barry. Now he would claim the championship of England for the first time this has ever been done, 1790, following the retirement of Tom Johnson, as well as English champion Ben Breen. January 1791, August 15th, May 1792. He defeated middleweight champion of England in 23 rounds, 1 hour and 16 minutes to complete. He boxed with Harry Corrigan. 1784. 1787, he had bouts with Richard Humphreys. 1787, 1790. Last bout with Humphreys, September 29th, 1790. 72 rounds in Dorchester. An unbelievable career Daniel Mendoza would have. And it was said that he actually meant the Prince of Wales, George King III. Joe Chowinski lived 1 mile away from future heavyweight champion, Gentleman Jim Corbett, San Francisco, California. He fought in the weight of 160 to 170 pounds. Now, Joe Chowinski fought well over 100 bouts, bare knuckles and 20-ounce gloves. Chowinski boxed Jack Johnson, taught him tricks of the trade while they were locked up for illegal fighting. He went 20 rounds with Jim Jeffries. He knocked out Jack Johnson, so it's stated. He defeated non-title bouts and no decision fights Bob Fitzsimmons, Gentleman Jim Corbett, John L. Sullivan. Joe Chowinski was a master boxer who could outbox Gentleman Jim Corbett, but he couldn't outbox Peter Jackson, who unfortunately never got a title shot. Abe Patel, his name was Little Hebrew. Now he was in the ring with Harry Forbes, battling Nelson, Tommy Phelps, Kid Herman, Harlem Tom Murphy. He'd also fight Owen Moran, Charlie White. He was a phenomenal fighter, was Abe Patel. Fought Johnny Kilbane and Matty Baldwin. Tommy O'Toole, Philadelphia's Pal Moore, and Ted Moore, Franklin Conley. He had a fighting record of 165 fights, 92 wins, 10 losses, 22 title defenses in 8 years. Unbelievable fighter was Abe Patel. He would also have 22 no decision matches. Ted Kid Lewis was a welterweight champion, born October 28th, 1893. He died October 20th, 1970. He had total bouts of 280 fights, 170 wins, 30 losses, and 30 knockouts. He began boxing as a bantamweight. At the age of 14, grew into a middleweight and won a light heavyweight championship of England. Amazing fighter was Ted Kid Lewis. He'd be in the ring with Lou Tendler, Philadelphia lightweight, southpaw. Speaking of Lou Tendler, he would lose a lightweight opportunity. Championship bout with Benny Leonard. Now what's amazing about Lou Tendler, besides having a fighting record of 59 wins, 37 knockouts, 11 losses, 168 total bouts, he'd be entered into the Hall of Fame in 1961. He lost a close bout to the toy bulldog, Mickey Walker. He also had Barney Ross. He was the 3-title weight champion, weighing as high as 140 pounds. Fought Billy Patrol twice, Seferino Garcia 3 times. And he'd be in the ring with Hammer and Henry Armstrong, where he would retire. Had wonderful wars with Jimmy McLarnin, Tony Canzaneri, just to name a few. Shout out to Barney Ross. Jackie Fields, 1925 and 1933. He would pay homage to the ring. He had total bouts of 84 fights, 72 wins, 31 knockouts, and 9 losses. Born February 9th, 1908, Chicago, Illinois. And he resigned June 3rd, 1987. 79 years of age at the time of his death. Stood 5 foot 9 inches and had a 69-inch reach. I had the pleasure of meeting Jackie Fields. Very pleasant man. He lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, last couple of years before he passed away. He'd be in the ring with King Tut, Tommy Freeman, William Gorilla Jones, Vince Dundee, Young Jack Thompson, Young Terry, Baby Joe Gans, Sammy Baker. I mean, phenomenal fighter he was. I mean, we're looking at guys like Dick Hope, Lewis Kid Kaplan, Sammy Mandel, Mushy Callahan, Johnny Lamar. Phenomenal fighter he was. Mushy Callahan, Vincent Shear was his name. He was world lightweight champion. And he was in the ring with Sammy Baker, Todd Moran, Dick Hope, and Ralph Chong, Chuck Myers, Jimmy Goodwrench, Jackie Kid Bird, Pinky Mitchell and Ace Huskins, Paul Moran. Wonderful, wonderful fighter he was. Lewis Kid Kaplan, former world welterweight champion. Ducked by many lightweights. Had total bouts of 127 fights, 96 wins, 21 knockouts, and 13 losses. The Ghetto Wizard, Benny Leonard. He was better known as the Dancing Master. He was born to fight. 19 years of age. And he was moving his hands like he came out of the crib that way. Fighting career record. 210 bouts. 99 wins. 77 knockouts. 5 losses. And he was stopped once by Jimmy McLaurin. He was in a ring with Rocky Kansas and Pinky Mitchell, Ever Hammer, Soldier Barfield, Charlie White, Johnny Dundee, Jack Britton. He'll also be in a ring with Eddie Wallace, Philadelphia Power Moore, Patsy Cline, Joe Thomas, Johnny Kilbane, Wildcat Leonard, Ted Kid Lewis, Spider Roach, Willie Jackson, Eddie Dorsey, Leo Johnson, Phil Bloom, Eddie Wallace, Freddie Welch. The jewel of the ghetto. His name was Ruby Goldstein. He could be found on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Now, he was born October 7th, 1907. He lived exactly 1 block away from a good friend of mine named Teddy. He lived on Cherry Street in the Lower East Side. And Teddy told me hundreds of stories about Ruby Goldstein. They were very, very good friends. He had total bouts of 60 fights, 54 wins, 38 wins by knockout, which is astonishing, actually. 6 losses. And what was amazing about him, he would have some career. He would suffer a KO loss to Sid Terrace, May 15th, 1927, New York's Polo Ground. Both of these young men went to the same high school, and it divided the Jewish community. 40,000 spectators at their polo grounds. And unfortunately, Ruby Goldstein, he'd be stopped in 1 round. Now, he would drop Sid Terrace in the first few seconds of the first round, but he would get up and get dropped and couldn't get up. And like I said, that actually tore apart the Jewish community. All the young kids and all the merchants stopped speaking to one another because they sided with 2 different young men. And what's amazing about it, they were both Jewish fighters. Mike Rossman, known as the Jewish Bomber. Al Bummy Davis, Leech Cross, the Fighting Dentist. Al Singer, Bob Olin, who was a light heavyweight southpaw champion. Danny Rosenblum, Corporate Izzy Schwartz, Solly Krieger, who was a middleweight champion. Benny Vogel, outstanding fighter he was. Maxie Shapiro, very good friend of my friend Teddy's. Sid Terrace, Abe Simon, Kingfish Levinsky, Charlie White out of Chicago, Barney Ross, who was also out of Chicago. He was a 3-weight division champion. Sal Manby was a junior welterweight champion. Abe Goldstein, Robert Cohen, Alfonso Jaime, these are all champions. Dutch Sams. I'll tell you, Chicago had a hard-punching lightweight by the name of Ray Miller. Monty Attell. He was known as the Knob Terror. He was a bantamweight. Now, Maxie Shapiro, he boxed over 7 world champions. He could fight. He was somewhat of a club fighter. He also trained in Stillman's gym. He had Benny Bass, named Little Fish, who was a world featherweight and junior lightweight champion. He would lose his junior lightweight champion to the Cuban Bong Bong, Kid Chocolate. You had Abe Patel, who was called Little Hebrew. He was a world featherweight champion. Max Baer, the Dancing Bear, world heavyweight champion. Jackie Kid Bird. He was a junior welterweight champion out of England. Jack Bernstein, Kid Murphy. He was a world junior lightweight champion. Harry Hairpin Harris. Maxie Rosenblum was named Slapsy Maxie. Was given that name by author named Damon Runyon. Damon Runyon had a fund that Ray Robinson would always contribute to. And Maxie Rosenblum was born to fight. Although he had no punching power, had a fighting record of 289 total bouts, 210 victories, 18 knockouts. He had 35 losses and was stopped twice. Defeated fighters such as Ted Kid Lewis, who was a former welterweight champion. Jimmy Slattery, who was a heavyweight. Tiger Flowers, who was a middleweight champion when he defeated Harry Greb in 1926. James Braddock, who became a heavyweight champion when he defeated Max Baer. Battling Levinsky fought and held the light heavyweight championship belt for 8 years. 274 total bouts, 66 wins, 23 knockouts, 85 no decisions. Incredible. Fought 3 times in one day, 3 different states. He may have had over 400 bouts. Now in Stillman's Gymnasium, we had some fascinating trainers. Trainers such as Charlie Goldman, Chicky Ferreira, Ray Arcel, Freddie Brown, Whitey Bimstein, Al Savani. Now you had some assistant trainers at that time, Lou Duva and Angelo Dundee. You had Irving Cohen, Jack Curley. Jack Curley collected the money. Al Braverman. Now Charlie Goldman would be responsible for Rocky Marciano's career. Whitey Bimstein had Rocky Graziano, among others. Chicky Ferreira was involved with Jimmy Ellis, an assistant to Muhammad Ali. Lou Duva would have Evander Holyfield, Pernell Whitaker, Meldrick Taylor, Mark Breland, Tyrell Biggs. You have Frankie Chiquita Warren, Rocky Lockridge, as well as Johnny Bumpus. He was known as Bump City. Pinklin Thomas, Jose Napoles. Amazing. Now you would have Angelo Dundee, who would train Carmen Basilio, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Pinklin Thomas. He would also train Jose Napoles. Now a lot of movies will be made in that gym, such as On the Waterfront, The Harder They Fall, Somebody Up There Likes Me, Vic went for a heavyweight. You had matchmakers, such as Teddy Benner, Harry Maximin, Dukes DeStefano. Amazing place to be was Stillman's Gym. The Jewish community had offered a great deal of services to the game of boxing. You're looking at Jackie Kidberg, one of the greatest fighters of all times. He was in a ring with Tony Canzaneri and many other fighters. We cannot forget the Jewish fighter. Some of the greatest boxers, such as Benny Leonard, Benny Volger. Unbelievable contributions they would make. Now here you have Charlie Phil Rosenberg, outstanding bantamweight. Phenomenal champion he was. Dynamite contribution to the Jewish community. Ace Huskins, the Nebraskan Wildcat. Phenomenal fighter he was. Another member of the Jewish community. Jackie Kidberg and Jackie Fields. Two outstanding welterweight champions. Here you have Jackie Fields. He would take his title from young Jack Thompson. In fact, they would exchange titles twice. And he would lose his title to young Corbett III. The great Barney Ross. One of the greatest fighters of all times. He would have wars with Jimmy McLarnin and lose his title to the great Henry Armstrong. Benny Leonard, the Ghetto Wizard. One of the greatest lightweight champions of all times, along with Joe Gans, in my estimation. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to the Jewish fighters. Tremendous contribution to the game of boxing. Peace.